What do CEOs need to know about sales these days? A lot. Outdated sales strategies and tactics plague most companies today. Listen to what innovative CEOs and experts have to say about how to change all that with Sales Talk for CEOs. Oh, I'm so excited today to be with you all here on Sales Talk for CEOs. I have a special guest, someone who I've known for a couple of years now and have watched him really grow his company. My guest today bootstrapped a B2B SaaS company from 0 to 20 million in just 5 years. How did he do it? Well, I'm going to mostly let him tell you, but I'm going to say that he did some of the things that I always recommend that CEOs do, especially founders when they're first starting out. He became super visible. He was out there networking. He was putting himself out there and letting people know him. And that really did work for him. So I'm very excited to have today the CEO and founder of Lempire, Guillaume Moubeche. Gee, how are you?
I'm great, Alice. Super happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, all the way from Paris, France. That's got to be lovely. I have been there once, but I'd love to go back.
You're always welcome.
Oh, thank you so much. I hope you have a spare room for me.
I do.
Okay, well, good. Well, gosh, it's been 3 years at least since we did your show together, and we were streaming live on Facebook back then. And I've been watching you grow, and I want you to share how you've done it, the remarkable success that you've had, and just tell us a little bit. What is Lempire? What do you do? And then we'll go take you back to before you started the company and revisit your journey.
Awesome. So Lempire is a suite of SaaS tools, so softwares that helps B2B businesses grow and acquire customers. Our most famous product is called Lemlist. It's a sales automation platform that helps salespeople find and get in touch with their future customers. So we started Lemlist back in 2018, and we are in more than 100 countries now, serving more than 10,000 customers. And as you mentioned, like doing a bit more than $20 million in annual recurring revenue now.
So exciting. I mean, how many countries are you
in? More than 100. We just crossed that mark.
In such a short period of time. So, of course, our listeners, all of our CEOs and those who support CEOs are going to want to know exactly how you did it. So let's go way back to the time 2018, right before you started the company. What were you doing and how did you get the idea?
Yeah, so before Lemlist, I actually had a lead generation agency. So I was running sales prospecting campaigns, mainly cold email links for different B2B companies, from like service companies up to software companies in Europe and the US. And eventually, after using all the tools on the market, I was a bit frustrated by two main topics. One was the deliverability. There were no way to know whether or not our emails were landing in the spam folder versus like the main inbox. And the second part was personalization. I felt like all the tools out there were kind of like lacking the human touch. And when I look at sales, for me, it's mainly about relationships and trust. And to build trust and relationship, adding more personalization can really help you out. And that's why I decided to start, just my own software solving my own needs at the time.
This is such a familiar story, right? Founder is doing job A, can't find the tools that are needed to do it well enough. Founder decides, I'll just have to start my own company and build those tools, right? And that is exactly what you did. And I just love that. All right. So, how did you begin? I mean, did you get this idea in your head, map it out on paper, find a coder? What happened? How did you do it?
Yeah, so at the time I was actually helping for free some other companies. So on my spare time, I would help out like startups that were just getting started to do their like customer acquisition, or at least like map out how they should acquire customers. And eventually I came across like a a developer that was not going anywhere with his project, and he told me like, do you want to start something together? And I was like, you know what, I've got an idea. And that's how we got started.
Great. So you had the idea, he knew how to make it a reality, and you began. Now, how long did you spend developing the product and kind of, testing the market and all of that before
um,
you actually started selling?
Yeah, in full transparency, like it was very quick because the person at the time, so I was pretty young and he didn't have like full confidence in me. So he told me, I'm gonna build like according to his word, a shitty MVP, and you're gonna have to sell it. And I'm not gonna spend more than like 3 weeks coding it. So I would do like the design, the interface, and everything. And then he would say, okay, like this part, I'm not gonna do it. This, I'm not gonna do it, and go out there and try to sell it. So after 3 weeks, I was out there and already doing sales.
I love it. I love it. Well, I think it's really important in the early stage to sell the idea before you actually finish it. I mean, you knew that you needed it and you were guessing that other people probably needed it too, right?
Yeah.
But you really didn't know until you started asking. And so that's, I think, a key thing for founders to remember is they've just simply got to go out and talk to their customers. And in fact, I was reading one of the LinkedIn posts that you made just a couple of days ago, and you were saying, hey, founders, listen, you got to know your ideal customer profile, and then you got to go talk to them every single day. You got to know what they're up to, right?
Yeah,
So I think
definitely.
that's amazing. So you were out doing that with a product that was very minimum viable product-ish. But it gave everybody the idea, right? Enough to see whether they wanted it. What were you finding when you were out there after just 3 weeks?
Yeah, at first, so it was quite an interesting story. So at first, I thought that like to build a successful software company, I had to raise funds. So during the time where my co-founder at the time was like building the product, I was reaching out like to investors, etc. But I would keep getting rejected. So eventually, I was like, you know what? Let's focus on the customers, and I started to do like like customer research. So the idea is to not talk about the solution so much, but more talk about like the problem and see if it's a problem where people really have like their hair on fire problem, and you want to bring the solution to them. And I could tell from the beginning that the market was kind of like splitted into two parts: the people who actually knew a lot about sales prospecting, and the rest who kind of felt into the trap, of you can automate everything and you're going to put your sales on autopilot, which is, in my opinion, like just the wrong marketing. It's you're selling promises that you can't deliver, and a lot of tools were doing that at the time. And I at that time, I think I spotted like the opportunity just to go back to what sales is really, and it takes time to build relationship. It takes time to personalize, and sales prospecting should reflect in some aspect the time you spend reaching out to people. And that's kind of like how I found my angle, by just talking daily to like many different potential customers, and people were just willing to spend 15 minutes with me while I was asking them questions.
Wonderful. I love what you said that, get back to what sales is really, right?
Yeah.
Which is developing relationships. And I think today a lot of companies are realizing they've gotten so far away, right, from the customer, and it's all about the seller and sales and doing something and doing activities. And, it's like they're doing the wrong activities wrong instead of doing the right activities right. And realizing that selling is such a human thing, that we're helping and solving and directing and guiding, right? Trying to make people's worlds better. And when we take that very human approach and develop our tools around that very human approach, we're just going to go so much farther, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think people, like to build up on your point, I think people over complexify like business. But for me, it's all about one thing, and it's trust. If tomorrow, like I see you on the street and you tell me, hey, G, if you give me $10 today, I will give you $100 in a week. I will give you $10 because I trust you, Alice. But if I see a random person and they ask me the exact same question, I'll probably not give them $10. And for me, sales in B2B, it's exactly the same. Like if you trust someone, and that person's going to help you either make more money or save time, you're going to be able to work with him and you or her, and you'll be like really happy, to do so. And for me, like whenever you look at sales and how people love to complexify things and look at like how many tools we're using and all the fluff around that, sometimes I think like people are just messing around with the wrong things and looking at the wrong metrics, when in the end it should always go back to like the basics of helping someone out, solving
Yeah.
a real problem, and building relationships.
Yeah, it's so true. People are focused on the wrong things, and the companies who are getting back to focusing on the customer and their needs and how they can help are the ones that are winning today. And the ones who are still just blasting out email and phone calls and spamming on LinkedIn, there's no trust there. People are just like, oh, you're just going to spam me.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's terrible. All right, so your tool can help sellers be much more personal and do the outreach that they want and build that trust. And you're out there talking about it and finding that people are interested. And so, when did you make your first actual sale, and what was that like?
At the time, it was really tough because I think there are two ways of starting a business. One is the blue ocean. So essentially, like there are no other tools on the market. You find one pressing problem that hasn't been solved for some reason, and you arrive with a solution. Everyone loves you. You like huge traction very quickly. It's awesome. Or red ocean. Red ocean, like you have tons of competitors, so the need is there because there are competitors, there is a market, but it's a lot more difficult to sell because obviously there are other players. So people always have like a point of comparison. And in our case, we were like in a red ocean. So the product market fit was essentially there, but not really for our product because it was brand new and we had people, who had been developing theirs for, I don't know, like 3, 4, 5 years. So the expectations for people were really high. So the strategy I had back in the days was instead of selling the product, I would basically tell people that I would actually write their own sales prospecting campaign, but adding and leveraging our features that were kind of like differentiators. So we could add like personalized images with logos or videos and boost like the deliverability, etc. And I would tell them, if I get better results than what you're currently having with your solution and the way you do it, you switch to us and you keep giving us feedback. So that was kind of the way, I started having like the first customers, and let's say the 10 to 15 beta testers. And eventually, as the product evolved and I would listen to their feedback, etc., I would gather like more and more people, and the product it would get easier and easier to sell and convert.
Wow, I love that, and I think you were just, as they say, putting your money where your mouth is, right?
Yeah.
You're like, "Okay, look, I'll just prove it to you. It's plain and simple. If my way works better, then you're gonna buy it."
Yeah.
And of course, you have to test that, and you did test that, and that worked, and you were off to the races in a very short period of time. So I think that your way was obviously superior because it was more human and it was about building trust and it wasn't just about volume, right? That's the problem with these types of tools. People just use them to create tremendous volume of outreach with very low results, right? They're
Yeah.
getting, less than 1% results. And so that just simply doesn't work. So you built it better so that it does work. And you sold it, and then you started to really grow. So where was the point as CEO where you said to yourself, okay, I cannot be the CEO and grow this company the way I need to, and also be the only full-time seller. I need to build some sort of a team here.
Yeah, so to be entirely transparent, it was my first like SaaS company, so I wasn't good at hiring at all. And when I got started, I think I took the company by myself to like $1 million in annual recurring revenue. So I made basically like all the sales until then. So I was the only one doing sales. And eventually, I was like, okay, maybe maybe it's time to hire someone, because I was based in Paris, and because like the vast majority of our customers are based in the US, I would essentially like work a lot, like on content and all the other stuff in the morning. And as of the afternoon to like late at night, I would do the demos and the closing. And I think it's really important, like when you're the founder, to do all these things. I see a lot of people, who want to delegate very quickly, and then they kind of like stop talking, to their users. In full transparency, right now, like I'm still like we have a big community, and I keep talking with like our users all the time. Like they can send me feedback, I can give them feedback on sometime, like their email copy, etc. And the reason why I do it is because I really want to understand like what their problem and how we can solve it. And if you're passionate about a problem, I think this is the only path to unlimited growth. The day you decide to say like, yeah, the company is making like tens of millions, I'm pretty chilled and etc. Like, and you lose kind of the reason and the fire why you're doing things. I think it's you should just change company and and do something else. But at 1 million, this is when I started like hiring someone. I had kind of created like a really good engine after 1 million to generate a lot of like inbound leads. So my strategy was pretty simple. So when I got started, you have to picture that in 2018, I had put like basically all the money I had in my bank account. So it was like close to like $1,000 at the time, because I had failed like something just before. And my girlfriend was paying the rent, so we did not have any money. So the only way for me like to acquire customers was using my tool and doing sales prospecting. So I would do sales prospecting. People, like who didn't believe in outbound and would take a meeting with me would be saying essentially like, hey, like I'm not sure outbound would work for me, etc., etc. And then I would say, I'm not telling you that you're going to close more deals, but what I can guarantee is that you're going to get meetings. And then they were like, how? I'm not sure that works. I'm like, how did we get that meeting together? Yes, true. You sent me an email, and then it was kind of like my selling point. So using my own tool, like eating my own dog food, was really like helpful. And from there, every campaigns that I would run and that would give me like really good results, I would document it and share the exact templates and messages I would use. So what subject line, how I personalize my message, why, like what intent was I using. So for example, I don't know, like a CEO that just raised like a round and was thinking about hiring like their first outbound sales rep. For me, it's like the ideal time to talk to that person and see how do they want to do it, how can I help, and potentially like implement my tool along the way. So I would explain everything, and then the content I would share it in the community. In our community of users that I would onboard, people would give feedback and ask us, for example, to improve XYZ, or maybe share like a new problem they would had. From that problem, we would basically create a new feature in the product. And then I would reuse that feature to show how to solve the problem, document it again, and so on and so forth. And that would create kind of like a growth loop where everything that we are developing, we use it ourselves. We show the results and show kind of the dream outcome of what it looks like when you do it the right way. We educate also the market at the same time. And then, like people are more willing to share because you're listening to them. You show them that you actually care and that you want to solve their problem. And eventually it's like it's basically helps your product to get better. It helps people get better results, more sales. And essentially it's a win-win situation. And that's what I love about business. It's a game where everyone can win. You just have to be, like willing to share, exchange, be vulnerable, and be honest. And overall, I think it's that was kind of the loop I had. And from that point, I decided to hire someone who would do like inbound demos at first, someone that I would train, and eventually we scaled the team and had like more people joining.
Yeah, I mean, staying close to the community really worked for you. And you, like I mentioned in the intro, you put yourself out there. You were talking to people all the time, privately, but also publicly.
Yeah.
You were having conversations with lots and lots of people, and streaming those so that people could learn. You mentioned you were sharing all of the things that were working for you. So you're really walking your talk. It's like, hey, I use this to get in touch with you. You can use it to get in touch with your ideal customer also.
Mm.
Here's how it works. I'll tell you everything, right? And you did. And then people gave you that feedback and you took it and you used it to keep improving the product. I just love it. All right. So you decided, look, I'm working night and day here, getting tired, probably not having enough time with family or girlfriend, all of that. But like a lot of us, when we start companies, right, we work like crazy to make it go. And then, you got to your first million and said, hey, we're going to have to hire some people. Maybe you waited too long, maybe you didn't, but at least you stayed close to it. And then you're like, okay, let's hire some people. So you got somebody to do the demos on the front end, and probably that helped a lot to free up some of your time. But you were still generating all of the leads
Yeah.
and holding all of the major appointments with people to talk about their needs. So when did you start to think, all right, I can put these processes that I'm doing kind of down in a playbook of some sort, and I can teach other people to do this, and then really start to scale?
Yeah, I think like the way we were doing things, it's actually like it's a bit of a different way to do sales, in a sense that for me, as I mentioned, like the trust framework is extremely important. And trust for me, it's basically like the framework I have in mind is like a triangle, and you have three sides, and each side is necessary for the triangle to work and for people to trust you. And the first side is called like the credibility. So if I go on your profile, for example, on LinkedIn, I can see like the content you share, I can see your podcast, who you talk to, and obviously you're credible. So credibility point, check. Then it's like the reliability. If I go on your website and I see like all your customers and how happy they are working with you, Alice, I say, okay, like she's reliable. When she's promising something, she delivers. And finally, there is the emotional connection. That's something we can't always control, but if people are like listening to our podcast or watching the video on YouTube, they might say, you know what, like Alice and G, I like them, they have a good vibe, I connect with them in some way. And for me, like this trust framework is like super important when you do sales prospecting. And what I've realized is that the more I would post on LinkedIn and do outreach at the same time, the higher my reply rate would be. So at first, like no one knew me, like I was a nobody, like it was I had no network, etc. But eventually, as I grew my audience and I was documenting everything, I realized that the people I would reach out to, either like from the people adding me on LinkedIn, etc., but they would reply at a rate that was like 4 times higher than regular campaign that I would have launched like back in the days. So eventually, like my strategy was like, okay, can I have like and hire like sales rep who I'm gonna teach how to build a personal brand on LinkedIn? So how to actually create content, document, like all the things they are learning along the way, and document their journey. So eventually they can help more people by producing high quality content. And eventually, when they reach out to these people and grow their network, they will get a much higher reply rate. And that's how step by step I started to build like our sales team and the outbound sales team.
Yeah, that is so important. I think everyone listening who is not successful on LinkedIn right now, it's because you're not building trust before you reach out and ask people to have a meeting with you. I think this is so important. There's some other people who do a really good job of this online also. I don't know if you know Melissa Kwan, she comes to
Yeah.
mind, and Samantha McKenna. They give so much powerful content out, and there's many others who are doing this, and they just give and give great content, and then they seek out people, some who are interacting with them already, some who they may not know, but they have built up that trust and shown people that they're going to give something, right? So then when they reach out, people are very interested to talk to them. They want to learn more, and it makes it much easier. And I think, CEOs can certainly play this role, and it's a very important role for CEOs to evangelize like this and to be a magnet for the ideal customer. But sellers can do it too, and they really need to. So, modeling this for them and then teaching them to do it and holding them accountable to do it is going to increase their results tremendously. And of course, you proved it.
Yeah, and what's interesting also, and what I've learned along the way, it's like if you want to master a topic, the best way to do so is to teach it. And as a seller, whenever you join a company, you should be passionate about the problem you're solving. If you don't care about the problem you're solving and you just go for the money, it's not the best. It's not the best path. You're not going to be fulfilled. There are so many jobs out there. Like, don't waste your time with something you're not passionate about, and don't waste your time on people like you don't care about. Like, it's not the right strategy. So always join something you really care about, or something you find even intellectually interesting, and eventually to become really an expert at solving the problem. Document everything you learn along the way, because if, for example, you're solving like something extremely niche, it can be even a bit technical, etc. And on your LinkedIn, you are posting about that topic and why it matters, and what you do is actually like really important. Whenever you're gonna add some people online, what are they gonna do? Like, they're gonna check your profile. What are your top posts? What do you write about? You were telling me before we start the show, Alice. You went on my profile, check like one of the last posts. We all do this. We're all we all love to stalk. Like, that's part of human nature. And social media is so open that, of course, like, I want to understand how you think, what you do, like who you are. And just like reading a post or watching someone's video gives me like a sneak peek of who they are. And again, we go back to that trust framework. But once it's established, your reply rate will increase a lot, and the way and you will be also able to help a lot more people.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. All right, so you started hiring salespeople. Now, this is never easy. How
Mm.
did you decide what type of salesperson do I want? Where am I going to find them? How am I going to train them? Like, tell us how all that started happening, because you're running the company, you're doing
Yeah.
all the sales, and now you're trying to build a sales organization.
Yeah, I think what I love to look at, especially like for a first sales rep, is to find people who have an entrepreneur's mindset, but who don't potentially have like enough courage to be entrepreneurs, or maybe they see it like as something way too risky and they don't want to risk it for now. So when I see that spark, I usually try to push them, to go into sales, because I think like if you learn how to sell, you will you can do anything in life. Sale is it's human, as you mentioned it. Sale is about helping, and helping, if you provide value to people, they'll be happy to pay you and give you something in exchange. So you can basically succeed anywhere you are in the world. So for me, it's the goal was trying to find these people. So the two things I was looking for is like the entrepreneurial mindset. So usually I would ask questions like, okay, what are the things you do in your free time? What was the last thing you learned by yourself? Is there a project that you launched, and why? Like this kind of question, just trying to see like the kind of mindset. And the second part was the coachability. So it's super important to find people who are coachable, because obviously you want to train them, and the way you do sell as a CEO sometimes is very different from what people have learned. And it's your company, you've closed deals, so you need to be the one teaching, how to do so. And if you're a CEO and you think that sales is not for you and that you can hire the right VP, etc., like, no, that doesn't work. Like, you first need to
It
do it.
doesn't.
Yeah, it's a big mistake. So hire a coach to teach you how to do sales, and then later on hire a team. But for me, the best way to teach, to show if someone is coachable, what I would do is, for example, I would have them read one of our article, and a specific that describe essentially a specific pain point, and the solution that we're selling. So let's say, for example, like people have issues with deliverability, they have a super low open rate, and they don't know why. They believe that it's because their email are going to spam. So during the call and the interview, I'm going to pretend that I'm that problem. I'm that person having that problem. So I would say hey, yeah, I just saw on your website that you might help with deliverability. And then I see how do they process the entire sales call, like what do they say, etc. During that time, I take a lot of notes on what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong, etc. And at the end, when the sale is done, I'm like, okay, now I'm gonna give you like feedback. And from that point on, I look at what they do. Are they taking notes? Are they like just staying like this and being scared? Like, how do they react exactly? And usually the feedback, there are something very basic. For example, like, like at the end of the role play, you didn't book the next step. So after like a first call, you should have in the person's calendar a next call with what are the exact next steps. You didn't ask really about like my problem. You went straight up to the solution. You didn't really dig up to the root cause. You were like more just staying, on top of the problem. So I just give like tons of feedback like this. I see how they react, and then I ask them, okay, was it clear? Are there anything that you want me, to dive a little more, a little deeper? And then eventually, I just tell them, okay, are you ready for a second session? And then I go back again to the same role play.
That's a really unique way of hiring, and I love that. I've always been a big fan of role playing during an interview, and I do believe that it is so hard to hire salespeople because they can, sell you during the interview, right? But if you're looking for those two things, whether they're entrepreneurial and whether they're coachable, I mean, that was what you needed at the time. Now, when you're hiring later on and your company's more mature, you may be looking for different things. But I really like the way that you specifically tailored the interview to find those two specific things. And I think those are really important no matter where you are in the maturity of your company to find out if salespeople are coachable. Because wow, I mean, we've all done it. We've all hired these salespeople who have these great track records. They did so well at their other company. They sounded so good, during the interview, and then they just simply don't perform, or they're doing some things and you keep trying to give them feedback and they don't make changes and you're not getting results and you're like, what happened here, right? So a friend of mine wrote a book called You're Not the Person I Hired. And that's how we all feel, right? After we hire
That's a good
somebody who
title.
doesn't work out.
Yeah.
All right. So you had a good method for interviewing them. Where did you find candidates that were more entrepreneurial, or did you just put it out there and see who came and then you interviewed for that
So
entrepreneurial?
yeah, at first I would do like outreach. To be honest, like eating my own dog food from sales to recruitment. I think that's where it worked best. So it's like I would try to network with a lot of people,
Yeah.
and eventually, if I would find someone who I would think, okay, that person is really good, or I would do like so I would say I have like three strategies. Strategy one is outreach. So try to find people who are working in companies where you believe like you have like similar DNA, and then reach out to them, network, see if it fits. Second option is referral. So trying to look around, with existing employees, like do they have recommendations of people they might think would be a good fit for the company. And the third option is, like having inbound people, so people applying. Um, in full transparency, like for people applying, often we had like we did not have like the highest quality of candidates, I
Yeah.
would say, especially in the early days where you also want to build a bit of a dream team. Like inbound, because at first your company is not that well known, so people who are gonna like apply often are just like I mean, some people applied in the early days and they were already like a super fan, which was great. And eventually, like it was a super fit. But for some, it's just like, just clicking on one button, sending like automated, application job, and that's it.
Yeah. Applicants are my least favorite way to find great people. I
Mm.
usually like them to come recommended, or someone goes and finds them and,
Yeah.
talks them into having an interview, that's really a better way. So, yeah. So, but all three of those ways are good ways to get applicants. And so then you would put them through the interview process. And how many salespeople did you hire? Did you hire one and then a little bit later hire a couple more? Or you hire a couple at the same time so you can kind of maybe benchmark against.
Yeah, I like to hire two people at the same time, especially when you want to like launch, whether you do like inbound or outbound. It's always great just to see, like how people perform and see whether I think because in the end, like as a business owner and a CEO, like sales is, I think it's a pretty like easy way to know whether or not people perform. Sales is like so close from the revenue, so it's for me, it's always obvious when someone works out and someone don't.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's your fault, of course. You're not the one giving like the right training. Sometimes it's just like not a
There's
culture
not
fit.
enough
Like,
leads. There's other
yeah,
issues. Yeah.
it can be like many different things, but down the line, like if someone fits. And yeah, so I like to do like a two by two. That way you can kind of like see and benchmark.
Yeah, I agree with that. I always recommend hiring too. I think that's so important. Plus, you get some economies of scale there. You got to train somebody anyway, and it takes time. May as well train two at a time
Mm.
and get them up to speed, right? And
Mm.
then they can help each other as well, and form that camaraderie and have a little, friendly competition going and things like that. So I think that's really exciting. All right, so bring us from there to your sales team today, and tell us what your sales organization is like. Do you have salespeople, doing different type of different parts of the sales process, or customer success people? How
Yeah.
are you making this all work today? So you had to do something to scale, right? So bring us from there to here.
Yeah, so essentially, like for everything that's like inbound related, we have about like 10 to 15 people because this is where we drive like the most of traffic. And for outbound, it's a smaller team, and that is doing like bigger accounts, and that's something we kind of like changed over time. And the new outbound team is like is pretty like recent, I would say, because we had a bit on and off with outbound. Sometimes we so at first, to get, I would say, like to 5 million, we were like full outbound. Then we had like a lot of organic, and marketing was taking off a lot, and we were like self-service, so people, like were just coming organically. And eventually, as you grow, you want to also like add additional like channels. We had a few, I would say, like yeah, I think I made like a few mistakes along the way creating the outbound team. So now our outbound team is about like 3 or 4 people, and it's really performing well. Everyone is hitting the quota, etc. So it's like we learned a lot from the past mistake, and now we're at a stage where things are rolling, and we can just add like more salespeople as we grow.
Share a little bit about some of those mistakes, because we've
Yeah.
all made them, but it's really helpful when we learn from each other. This is the mistake, and here's how we corrected.
Yeah, definitely. I think like the biggest mistake is not hiring the right leader, and mistaking the fact that a leader is not a top performer. So for me, it's like I've always been, like I love to lead by example. So I love to like show how you do it, and then like have people like learn from it. And I thought that if you don't really know exactly how to do it, and you're not the best at it, then like people will not always respect you or trust you, etc. And that was like totally wrong. There are people who are like excellent manager, they are great at building team, they are awesome coaches, but they're not like the best sales ever. Like they are just really good at fostering like a team culture, and are at like helping people to basically be superstar, but themselves are not really like the superstar. And what I basically realized is that the person like who was working in our team was a top performer, like but eventually she became kind of like in competition with people she was managing. So she always wanted to have like to close like the highest number of sales, etc., etc. And every 6 months she would also like let go her entire team, saying like, no, it doesn't work, etc. And it took us about like almost a year and a half, because like it takes you maybe like 3 4 months to build a team of like 5 people, then to train them and help them to level up, and then after that, after 6 months, if you let them go and you have to redo this again, it's almost like a year and a half to 2 years that you have kind of like wasted. For us, it was, I would say, not such an urgent problem, because we were like scaling so fast on the other end from just organic, etc., that I didn't focus a lot on it, but it was a mistake. And I think I could have like spotted it a bit earlier. And it was also a mistake on my end. Like I'm not putting this on the person who was top performer. I just did not manage to set the right expectation for her. I should have just told her like, you're a really good individual contributor. Let's bring in someone, with a lot more experience. And that way you will be able to grow a lot. But then, like, there is always this thing where, and if you're like starting your company and listening to this, like the biggest mistake I've made, it's to give titles too early. So my first employees, they were all heads off when they were no people in their team. So that didn't make any sense. But because you want to look important and you believe that everyone's going to be recognized, etc., in an industry with a title, and then for people down the line, it feels like like your ego kind of like your ego take a hit when someone tells you, okay, now you're not head of and you have to go back to individual contributor. And I think like I understand, like it's obviously like super tough because you were considered as someone, as a head of, but as a company scale, it's like a whole different story. But managing and building a team versus being like a individual contributor are like really two different things. And that's something you're gonna learn the hard way if you don't separate the two.
Absolutely. And that title inflation is something that happens in all startups. It's
Mm.
very dangerous and it's hard because you live with that legacy
Yeah.
and you're bringing new people in at the
Yeah.
same level or higher with a different title. But you're right, the egos do definitely get involved. So that's a big lookout, I think, for everyone who's starting out is be careful about that title inflation. Well, it sounds like you have an amazing team working now. You've got a lot of inbound, which is amazing. And then you've got outbound as well. I think everybody wishes they had more inbound. So, as we wrap up here, let's just talk a little bit about how you are producing so much inbound interest.
Yeah, I think like again for me, it's a bit of this growth cycle that I shared a bit earlier. Where like we use our product, so we've always been user of our product, and I think that's super important. If you don't build a product that you can use, what I would do is just like reach out to my customers and always share like their success stories. I think people underestimate the amount of knowledge and really cool information they can get. So for example, like I spent the last 2 weeks interviewing, like our customers, and the reality is like your customers should do your entire marketing, the way they talk, the way they say things. It's like the best tagline. Recently, we launched, for example, like a tool that is like competing with Calendly. It's just like like nicer design. You can add like more things on it, etc. And one of our users just say, "I ditched my Calendly to start using Lemcal." And after sometimes I was like, that's our tagline. Like it's simple. and,
I
and
love that.
and I think like if the more you're gonna spend time with your customers, share their story, like how they are successful, why they are successful, what was the problem, like you were solving, what was the root cause, etc. The less people kind of like feel alone, and the more like honest and transparent you are, the higher your conversion rate will be. Because the reality is like when you have a software saying put your sales on autopilot, and then someone use it and they get zero sales or very few sales, or the unit economics doesn't work, what are they going to think about themselves? They're going to start thinking, like I'm not worth it, or this is not the right tool for me, or this is not worth it. And eventually it's just fake marketing. And what I hate about like marketing that is done the wrong way is that marketing done the wrong way is all about like over promised and under deliver, while actually it should be the other way around. And the moment you can showcase this and show that people are becoming successful, your best marketing for me are your customers. So if your customers are happy, they're going to bring more customers. Asking for referral is going to be a lot easier. You're going to get intros on autopilots. You can incentivize your customers if you want, but eventually, like for me, we've never really done any like referral or things like this, because people are happy to share it because we provide value, we solve problem, and when people are happy, like they talk about it. Like yesterday I went to a great restaurant. I think I talk about it to like 3 friends. And that's how it works. Like, don't overcomplicate things. And yeah, just, yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. Well, that is really exciting to have your company growing so well. And if you would just, as we wrap up now, share top 3 things that you think that people can do. You did this without any investor money. You were looking for investor money in
Yeah.
the beginning, but then you decided, okay, I can't waste my time on that. Everybody's telling me no. I'll
Mhm.
just go sell something, right? And
Mhm.
I love that. And many times you can bootstrap, right? I mean, Melissa Kwan tells a story about doing 2 blue ocean companies and then completely changing and bootstrapping her third and being wildly successful with her e-webinar. And I think that's really, something to consider that people don't. They just think I need to get funds, but you did it without funds. And I'm sure you're very proud. And who knows, maybe in the future, to do some growth, you will take some debt or equity financing. But top 3 things that you think made the difference for your company.
I think like the first thing might be like pretty basic, but it's talking to customers
Yes.
daily. Like
Yes.
really, it's that simple. But I can guarantee that if you go to ask like CEOs, when was the last time they talked to one of their customers, talk about their problem, and they actually like listen to what they were saying, you'd see that. And it's crazy because I'm like in I don't know how many like entrepreneurs group, etc. And when I ask that question, like people are like, I don't know, like a month ago, a month and a half, sometimes it's like 3 months, but I know the problem really well. I'm like, you don't, like, you never know it well enough. And it's only when you talk to people that your brain will start thinking about like new things, new ways, new approach, etc. And all the solution will come down by themselves. Second part is I would say like set a clear vision. So the clearer your vision, the more you talk about it, the more like it will happen. I think it always like starts in your mind, but for it to be something that's actual, like real, you have to talk about it, and talk about it like often to your team, often to your customers. um, in the early days when our product was like really crappy, I would always give my mission to people, like my goal is to help you become successful. Trust me, like I know the product, I know it's not like where it needs to be, but help me understand your problem and I can guarantee that I will figure out a solution. And where you are honest and transparent about it and you share it with people, they're happy. They're like, okay, like I know that person's going to help me solve my problem, I want to trust, let's go. And the third part is hire a great team. Like without a great team, like you can't do anything, like you're going to be very, very limited. So people are like the number one most important thing in a company. You don't have to hire like hundreds of people. I think like right now, especially with everything that's around with AI, etc., like you can be really, really efficient with like small teams. But you need to find those like 10x people who are passionate, people who have the same value, and people where you're gonna have fun with. Because let's remember that business is a game, and if you play it like a game, I mean, you're gonna enjoy the time that pass. And for me, that's the meaning of life.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. So much good information shared. Tell everyone where they can find you.
So you can message me directly on my email. I answer like every single email. So guillaume@lempire.com, or on LinkedIn directly, Guillaume Moubeche. I also answer to like every question and always happy to help out.
Wonderful. And if you do connect with him on LinkedIn, please let him know that you found him here on Sales Talk for CEOs. It's been such a pleasure. Thank you for joining us all the way from Paris. I really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot for having me, Alice. I had a great time.
If you enjoyed the show, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week.